Hello and welcome to Tears Don't Fall, the show where each episode we subject one another to a band's entire discography and then subject our very, very biased tiered lists of the discography to you, the viewers, who vote on which person's subjective opinion is objectively correct. I'm Connor O'Keen. With me, as always, is Luke Ashley.
Evening,
and thank you so much for joining us for this, the second community choice episode.
Yes.
Opeth, the Swedish Sorrow Slingers. Opeth, progressive metal come progressive rock band.
Yeah, absolutely.
13 fucking albums.
Started in the 90s, sounded like the 70s, and then they come full circle. So it's very, very exciting. 13 albums, and the runtime of these albums eclipses probably 15 hours, or maybe even longer.
Yeah.
There may only be a handful of records that have a runtime of under an hour. So it's been a very dense listen. An exciting one, to be sure. Which way the coin falls, we'll find out. But speaking of coins, do we flip a coin for this one? Would you like to take the reins on...
in terms of who goes first?
Yep. Would you...
Well, look, I've already set up the presentation, having you go first. So
okay. Womp womp.
Yeah, womp womp.
Right on. Okay,
So-
well, that's the way the cookie crumbles.
I flipped a coin and it landed on you.
Yeah.
Fucking go. But
Sounds good.
before we get into that, let's talk previous experience. Usually, we'll pick a band to subject one another to. So someone's usually quite biased in their approach, and the other being quite fresh.
Yes.
What's your experience with Opeth?
My Virgin Flight with Opeth was through the release of Heritage.
Oh, okay.
And this was before. This is when I was searching to expand my horizons in heavy music.
Sure.
And was listening to Nordic, let's say more Nordic metal for the first time, and also American metal for the first time. So getting a taste of Pantera and Metallica, and summarily rejecting them for a while longer. I was not ready at this stage, and therefore I was also not ready for Heritage.
Sure.
I simply wasn't developed or mature enough, and probably for the best, because I think there's a lot to Opeth that I would have missed at that time. It took me a few more years to go back to Heritage, upon which I stumbled across a Salvador Dali AMV style work with Disney. That had Opeth's I Feel the Dark.
Okay.
Running through it. And the blends of the audio video sync was so delightful. It really I was enrapturing.
Cool.
And through that, it urged me to check out some of their other entries. So it seemed that the most accessible entries from a quick Google search was Ghost Reveries and Damnation / Deliverance. So they were the first albums that I immersed myself in, and to this day I think they are, for myself at least, I would recommend these as gateway picks to the rest of their catalogue. I feel like they tread the breadth of their catalogue without getting into any of the extremes that you can find in their other works.
Yeah,
so it's
sure.
just a nice, more of a palatable approach.
Yeah.
From there, I started broadening out, so I guess I came in from the middle of their catalogue and kept treading on either side earlier and later. So I'm familiar with about half of their catalogue before coming into TDF.
Yeah.
And their latest works and their earliest works I'd not heard before. So it was very exciting to have a great experience with some of their works, and then being able to apply that to the new material.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. What about yourself?
I've had several attempts at getting into this band. My introduction to them was I think Watershed had just come out. I think I signed up to like a Roadrunner newsletter or something, and they sent like a digital like mix CD sort of thing, like a what do they call it? A sampler. Yeah. And it had a bunch of their stuff, current like artist picks on there, some unreleased stuff, some stuff that had come out earlier that year, and it had track Burden from Watershed. And it came on one time. Initially, I was like, ballads, get out of here, because I was that age. But it caught me in the right mood one time, and I was like, this is really beautiful. And so I went to listen to the rest of Watershed, hit play, and at the time, not being well versed in death metal or at all interested in really heavy shit, scared me off.
Yeah.
A few years later, I think it would have been around the time of the 10th anniversary of Ghost Reveries, I picked up the latest Metal Hammer magazine at the time, and it had a feature about that album and its legacy and stuff. And reading that got me really interested. And just the next day, I happened to pick up. I've mentioned this fabled haul before, but some dude flogging a bunch of CDs online. I picked up 50 CDs for $100 or something off this dude, just a plastic bag full of CDs, and in it had Ghost Reveries, which I was thrilled to pick up, but also had Opeth's first 3 albums, as well as Damnation and Deliverance, a whole bunch of Opeth.
Yeah, that's quite eclectic.
And I was stoked to have them just because I was trying to bolster my collection at the time, and to have a band with such a legacy and have so many of their picks, it was like, I'm a real fan, I'm a real metalhead. But I don't think I fully immersed myself in them at the time. I definitely gave Ghost Reveries a good spin and attempted with their other stuff, but I don't know, found myself just distracted every time. So this is my first really concerted effort to sit with their discography and find something to enjoy in each release.
Beautiful.
Wrap my head around it a bit.
Right.
It's been fun.
Yeah. I bet being able to work through chronologically would be one of the only ways to feel like any sort of entry here. From you, I can imagine.
Having kind of
because due to the sheer amount of releases.
I think having context for
jump between.
Yeah, I think having context, doing a bit of reading on each album as I was listening to it and consuming it at this time, I found helped my enjoyment. Which helps my rankings. So,
excellent.
Shall we get into it?
Would love to.
And by that,
with great sorrow,
shall you get into it? Because again,
hell yeah,
I fucked ya. Let's do it.
Ooh. Your next
Source here. Yeah. And as always, chat, we will be reading chat and checking any of your comments, anything you want to contribute to the discussion between picks. So, with that in mind, start at the beginning.
Beautiful. All right. So we start at Opeth's debut album, Orchid. Now, this came out in I believe it was released in 1994.
Okay.
On Candlelight Records. However, Candlelight were a new company, and they were not able to ship the album for about 9 months after release. So, I guess officially it's out in 95 in that case.
Sure.
Either way, let's talk about the good of Orchid first.
Okay.
This is an incredible release for a debut release. If I was to hear this without the context of knowing it was their first release, I would not expect it to be so. There are some things that could be could easily be polarizing. And here I feel that this album, there's not a lot of objectivity to be had. If you love it, if you hate it, regardless of your other views, I think you'd have a strong case in whichever way you wanted to appeal. For myself, I was really impressed with the lack of structure in this release. I feel it serves, it immediately shows Opeth's maturity their boldness to stand out and display their very unique sound. Sometimes it takes bands a few releases, a few albums even, to truly carve out their sound. But here it is definitively Opeth. There are definitely elements that will go in time, but also there are some elements that are revisited that they leave behind for a while as well. Namely, this album is laden, it's dripping with folk elements, and they're sitting a bit too heavy for my liking. I find that these folk elements, I find them very immersion breaking or quite obtrusive. They feel like they get in the way of what I love about Opeth, I suppose. That being said, I'm gonna give this a C for Candlecore.
Ooh, I like that.
And that one. Here we are.
Yeah.
So, and it almost hurts me. I want to rank this higher. I do want to rank this album higher.
Yeah.
Because there is a lot of good to be had.
Yeah.
And typically, if I'm going to rank something in a C or D, it's because for one reason or another, I feel like I'm not that interested in going back to this record with any immediacy.
Yeah, sure.
Orchid, I will definitely go back to, and with some regularity. I want to know what makes this tick for a debut release. What makes Ackerfeld tick as a youth. I'm not sure how old he was when this was released. He joined when he was 16, so this couldn't have been. This may have been when he was 18 years old or so.
Yeah,
and that truly is a remarkable first album to put out at that age.
Yeah, yeah. If you want to develop an inferiority complex, look no further.
Yeah, truly. As previously stated, most Opeth albums have a runtime of over 1 hour. And for the most part, it feels like that hour does fly by for me. Unfortunately, it's not the case here. Those folk elements really do slow down the pacing of this record, and I do find myself looking at the watch, looking at the clock as this album flows. And it does feel pretty broken. But hey, you've got to, with a band that is happy to be as experimental and look to external elements and traditional elements to bring to a modern sound, I think it's inevitable that you'll have some hits and some misses as you tread over untread ground.
Yeah.
So, for pieces that aren't my cup of tea, the production is surprisingly cohesive with the vision of the record, from what I understand of the vision of the record, and serves it quite well. The lo-fi styling I'm into here. I think it complements all of the musical passages. And it surprises me how many vocals or how many lyrics there are to each of these tracks, because there are minutes at a time without any structured vocals at all. And yet, I guess the songs are just that long that they're still able to chunk out paragraphs upon paragraphs.
I
was really surprised going through the lyrics that they're able to fit all of this in, because I guess the lyrics are not memorable at all, unfortunately, from my view anyway. How about you, Cons? Where are you putting this one?
I largely share your feelings on this. I was really surprised at how well realized this album is as a debut, or how well realized their sound is. I think all the elements that anyone with a fledgling knowledge of Opeth would expect to hear are on offer here. And I think the melodic elements and the death metal elements and the folkier elements and the more progressive stuff, as well as like a healthy dose of Nuwabum worship, like I hear some Iron Maiden kind of.
Yeah, absolutely.
Worship on
definitely,
here.
Definitely.
I think it's all performed really convincingly and impeccably and quite fearlessly, which is something you mentioned. It really feels like I was expecting going into this, especially the first time I heard it, I expected it to be much more raw sounding than this, much more aggressive, much darker, much heavier. I didn't expect it to have any clean passages or acoustic guitar stuff. And
I thought that would be coming in later.
Yeah, I thought they would have, 2 or 3 albums in, they became the Opeth that has this legacy and this cult following behind it now, or this huge following behind it now. But no, it's on offer here, and I think that's the most impressive aspect of this record for me. I think for me, it's bookended. The album is bookended by the strongest tracks.
Yes,
for me.
Yeah.
I think in the mist she stood. Is that the name of the track? In the mist she was standing, and Into the Frost of Winter are the 2 strongest, most distinctive tracks on here. But even then, even having said that, they're not so distinct that I can put this any higher than a D.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
D for indistinct. There we go.
Wow. I'm shocked. This is very, very close to being a B for me. If it wasn't for the some of the folk passages that take me out of the record, this would be B tier for me.
Sure. Well, I think
it's
I placed this at a D in the context of their discography. Again, I think it's a really auspicious debut. I think what becomes apparent going through their discography is just how much the things I like, the things that work on this album, are expanded upon and done better in subsequent releases. I think in comparison to what's to come, it pales, and knowing what's to come made repeat listens of this album quite grating, and I was checking the watch.
Oh, yeah, I definitely checked the watch, but there's a charisma to this record for me.
Yeah, I don't find it uncharming.
And I'd say it's a charisma more so than some other records that they've released since.
Okay.
I do find it very attractive. There's, I guess, like a youthful exuberance, perhaps.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
it might be the Iron Maiden worship.
Yeah,
perhaps.
Sure.
I think it's so catchy.
You mentioned too, like the fact that he's 16. The lyrics, like his Ackerfeldt's penchant for verbosity is on display here. But it's for me, it doesn't feel like it's in service of anything other than sounding evil, which is as much as you read interviews and stuff of him talking about this album, it seems like that was all it needed to be. Yeah, I
feel like he's imitating a frontman rather than or what he'd like to be rather than being said.
Yeah, I think there's very little. For me, there's very little distinctive about each track.
Yeah.
Their focus seems to be more on creating a tone or an atmosphere, which they absolutely do, but it comes at the cost of like memorability for me. I placed this at a D. I think I've been thinking on my rankings for other lists for other bands, and debuts tend to sit so far at least have either sat really high up top or at a D, either an S or a D, and depending on how much of a personal attachment I have to that band, it seems to kind of dictate where that falls for me. And I just don't have much of an attachment to this band.
Sure.
I'm not so charmed by it that I want to place it any higher. Yeah. And I think I place this at a D just because for this band, like, spoilers, I don't think this band has any truly like shit albums. I just think the D tier for this one for me
I share that sentiment.
Is albums that I think I'm the least likely to revisit. That's cool. All right, good. I love that you're here to rock the boat. That's all I have to say on this album. Let's see what chat thinks. Matt says Orchid is a great indication of the albums to come in future releases, but it's definitely weak on its own. It's very, very ambitious.
It is, truly.
Yeah. Tundra, welcome, by the way. So glad you can make it. Michael, very young. Yeah, very impressive to create such an album that young. For sure. Yeah, it's, I mean, producing over an hour's worth of music however old is no small feat.
Truly.
Matt says there's a weird amount of Iron Maiden worship on this folk progressive death metal album. The guitar harmonies are a weird choice.
I think they feed into the folk stylings in a way that I'd say it's almost got not so much Iron Maiden as perhaps Thin Lizzy. So we're going even earlier, that we're going to the source of Iron Maiden's inspiration here, and bringing it back to that more traditional folk with the thirds layered everywhere.
Yeah. Tundra says this is an album where you just hit play and don't pay attention to what song you're listening to and just enjoy the ride.
We call that Opeth, baby.
I will say, like, again, it's all done really convincingly. Like, if their intention is to just sound evil, they do it really, really fucking well. Like, you can just put this on, and it's lo-fi enough to sound true without being, offensive to the ear holes.
Yeah. It's not too cool. Lo-fi for it to be very distracting.
Yeah, totally. Like unenjoyable, fucking unenjoyable. Shall we move on?
Yes.
All right, that's beautiful. Let's do it.
All right.
One more comment from Matt says,
Sure.
To me, it's more of an album where you can't pick what song you're listening to because all the songs have no identity of their own.
Yeah.
I think that's where I feel like it's bookended by the strongest material, because I'm like, I know this one. It's the one it's the start of the album. Right. I know this one. This is how it ends.
For me, Forest of October is my favorite track on this record, and it sits smack bang in the middle of the record. And and Twilight is the Twilight is my robe.
I love these fucking titles.
The Twilight is my robe.
Yeah, baby. Fuck yeah.
Yeah, they know what they're doing. And there are, and to give the illusion of the album being worth its 66-minute runtime. How long is it? No, sorry. Yeah, I think the final. We have a special edition.
Yeah.
Yes, it's about 66 minutes runtime.
True.
Where so there are 5 tracks on this record, 2 and then 2 intermissions essentially.
2 interludes.
Yeah, which Opeth definitely fond of an interlude on a few records to come. It's like it feels like a cheap justification for padding out that for not using the cutting room floor.
Yes. All right. Well, speaking of album 2, baby.
That's it. It's time for Morningrise. Get up, kids. It's 1996, and I feel like Morningrise is an apt title for this one.
Yeah.
Because goddamn, this album did make me rise.
Ooh.
I'm chucking this at a B, baby.
Ooh, okay.
Morningrise was a very welcome surprise. I did not expect to enjoy this album as much as I did, especially when I first spun this record. It continues the traditional lo-fi death metal sound of 96. And I mean, previously I've not been very open to lo-fi, famously lo-fi, low effort. But it's as I explore more of the 90s Scandinavian sound, Swedish death metal, listening to more Finnish bands, more Gothenburg around the 95 to 98. I'm really coming around. I'm opening my third eye, my dude.
Hey, fuck yeah.
Lo-fi does not necessarily mean not low effort. Who knew? Here, what a real standout for me, if the first album is Thin Lizzy or Iron Maiden inspired to the extreme, here I'm getting big Chuck Schuldiner energy. There are a lot of sections here where they what would have been Iron Maiden-esque leads come into a death-esque for me.
Okay.
And I think that the production certainly helps solidify that. But it might be that the riffage starts to get a little more dark and brutal. The harmonies start treading those fourths, and it's a very, very enjoyable listen for me. My favorite, I'd say, we'll just swing over to the tracks here. Let's go. Yeah. It's for most, I'd say for first album, you're saying that it's bookended by the front and the back. Here, the guts of the album and then the back end of the album are the real highlights for me. Black Rose Immortal and To Bid You Farewell are an incredible way to close out an album.
Yeah. Good last half hour of your album, man.
Right? Yeah, close out.
Spend half an hour ending
31
your album.
minutes. Yeah, on your closer. But hey, when once again the album's over,
that's the name of the game here.
Yeah, totally. I can felt pulling away a lot of the folk material already, or at least the most intrusive elements have been rejigged, and I feel like they blend into a sadder semblance of what they were on Orchid.
Okay.
Yeah. Come on.
Cool. My feelings on this album can largely be summed up as Morchid, as in more Orchid.
You wouldn't.
No, but better. more Orchid, but better. I feel like it does. I think it sees the approach of the last album updated with an improved production, just like marginally, but a renewed sense of focus, or a new sense of focus. I think this is a much more focused album, and the lyrics. I mean, from a lyrical standpoint, where the last album felt like just evil for the sake of evil, here the lyrics take on a more personal quality. And I think that helps them kind of start to go into that more sorrowful sound that they're known for.
Yeah, definitely. It's far less bright, and Orchid wasn't bright.
no, and I think tracks start to take on more distinctive qualities. I think the end of Nectar and the entirety of Black Rose Immortal are fucking awesome, and really make me make my ears prick up, which is something that the first album just doesn't do for me. I think that you mentioned that death sound. I feel like that's thanks in large part to the bassist, who it's his last album playing bass on this album.
Before they get the Martins,
I've written it down here, but I can't read my own handwriting. It's either John or Johan, which is probably more accurately Johan on bass, and Anders Norden on drums. And I think they both really leave their mark on this band's sound, especially for this era of it. And I feel like the sense of focus that this album has sets it apart from the first album and puts it a rung up for me, because it again starts to nail this sense of kind of sorrow and dread and a greater sense of storytelling. So even if I'm not remembering the songs after the fact, as I'm listening to it, I feel like I'm being led on something of a journey instead of just listening to someone. I say this in the nicest possible way: jerk off.
I was waiting for a wank in my ear.
Yeah. A very pleasant wank, but a wank nonetheless. Here it feels to serve more of a purpose. Sits it up at a B form. A C for me.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of people say that this is their favorite, or that Opeth hasn't. That this is where Opeth peaked. Things like that. There's a lot of. This is an album, or this is a band that, like metal historians like to kind of look back on and pick different things where they think
their early records and
and I think for good reason. Like I was really interested reading about Orchid, but around the same time, I mean, this is when especially like death metal in the like kind of had its heyday, really. The same year that Orchid came out, Symbolic, Slaughter of the Soul, Morbid Angels, Domination, Dark Tranquillities, The Gallery,
huge,
like all came out that year. Huge. And yet we're still talking about Opeth in the same breath. That's great, So yeah, I like this album more than the first album, but it's still, they're not winning me over just yet. You know? At this point in their discography, I can't consider myself a diehard
something
fan.
that, and partially due to the length of the tracks, but with both of these albums, I do find that there are so many movements to each of these songs that when I hear certain passages where my ears particularly prick up, I'll find it hard to go back to those points. I have to put down markers or make notes as to which part of the song I want to fast forward to if I want to hear that riff.
Yeah,
because it's very searching for certain parts of a song in a 20-minute song.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm after some instant gratification.
Yeah.
And the format of the album does not allow for that.
Yeah.
I guess the artistic intent is for you to sit through and say, no, this is a chapter. You're not allowed to skip. There's no
That's
glossary
dessert.
of terms.
Finish your dinner.
Yeah, exactly.
Finish your folk noodles.
Yeah. Consume the piece as we designed it.
Yeah.
And there is no two ways about that.
Yeah. I will say,
which I do accept begrudgingly that consumer-friendly brain says, geez, I wish they could have broken this up into a few more chapters.
Yeah, sure.
Break up into movements or something, yeah.
Yeah, I think and we riff on this all the time, but I am not what you would call prog inclined. So this isn't the kind of music that I generally like to consume. This isn't a way I like to listen to full albums, but I prefer the songs to be shorter generally.
You like to cut up your steak,
yeah, I like to cut up my steak,
pick it up and jam it,
yeah,
squirrel it away.
So I feel like there's I wouldn't say anybody is I think there's absolutely a chance that I'm completely missing a lot of the appeal of these first two records here, or this kind of songwriting. Just not for me. So chat, what do y'all think? Opeth, hey, thank you for the follow, by the way, Opeth.
Thank you.
Best Opeth album. All right, I want to hear your thoughts.
There it
Morningrise is a weird one for me, Matt says. It's an album that I want to like, but I found it suffered many of the same pitfalls in composition that I had with Orchid. Yeah. Tundra says, this is my brother's favourite album by Opeth. However, I still find it challenging to get through personally.
It's so interesting to see so many people citing, just as was mentioned, that this is the standout release. That this is the zenith. I'm keen to get more intimate with this album.
Yeah.
Sure.
Matt says, I think this album was the one where they really started to perfect what I like to call the long riff. Okay. Bit less black metal than Orchid, says Opeth.
Yes.
This album is seen as melodic black metal by some, says Tundra. Cool, okay. So many weird 13-bar sections that they later truly refined in their career. Okay. A lot of old school Opeth fans say this is their favourite, especially those who aren't fans of the later progressive leanings. Okay.
I think the production here is such a compliment. If this had a more hi-fi production, I would like this album less. I feel like it adds so much atmosphere that I really I just feel such an attraction to it because of that, which is something I don't think I've ever had that experience before with a record.
Cool.
I've liked other lo-fi releases, but not on the merit of a condensed production. It's this really album was really moved me in that sense.
Cool.
And it's I admire it for that.
Yeah. I will say I had a really cool experience listening to this album walking home in the rain at night.
Yeah, cool.
That was fucking cool.
Yeah.
I was like,
yeah.
I'm evil and stuff. All right.
Going through jumping out behind your concrete jungle.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Next album.
All right,
Fucking
baby.
My Arms, Your Hearse.
Oh,
sick title, dude.
That's about to be your Hearse, chat. Because here comes tonight's probably first big shake-up if putting the greatest Opeth album at a C and B wasn't enough already.
Okay.
Maybe My Hearse. It's a C. Now, this is seen as a massive breakout album for Opeth, as I can read through the history books.
Yeah.
I hear many cite that My Arms Your Hearse is one of the great Opeth records, and that many cite this as their favorite as well. And that it is, a great breakout album. But I'm coming to this already familiar with their future relative to this record.
Yeah.
And this serves more of a stepping stone than like a stepping stone on the journey to the top, rather than a summit. It's such a transition from Morningrise, but it adds more of a hi-fi production. They get Fredrik Nordstrom here, which is incredible, and I almost wish they didn't. I love the lo-fi atmosphere that was in Morningrise, and this feels like a step down in that regard for me. Knowing where they're going to go with this production value from here on out negatively impacts for me.
Right. Wow, okay.
Which is really unfortunate. Maybe if I spend more time with this record, I'll get it.
Yeah,
but
sure.
For now, I'm almost wishing I put Orchid in BT, because this is one I'm not in an urgency to go back to. Out of 13 albums, this is not one I'm in a rush to line up for and really get. Okay.
Sure.
It's unfortunate, but they can't all be winners. We'll state again, not familiar with this record before we took this TDF on.
Yeah.
And I think that is there is a C between us here.
Yeah.
And myself and those that grew up with this record or were on the ground floor for this release. I think that makes all the difference, really.
Sure. Yeah, okay.
Would have been incredible to witness this for the first time. But this album isn't doing anything for the first time for me.
Sure. Okay.
Whereas Morningrise was.
Okay. Well, all right.
I don't want to go on too long with
No, of course.
To get through,
yeah,
so.
of course. I agree with you in that I think it's a stepping stone, but it's stepping up the ladder, dude. I chucked this at a B. This is
right.
You're the Hearse, I'm the arms, baby. Fucking come here for a cuddle. This album, every time I get to it, especially listening chronologically, this is the album where I exclaim, like, here we fucking go.
Wow.
As soon as it starts. Yeah, as soon as April Ethereal kicks in, I'm like, all right. This is Opeth. This is what I want to hear.
Right.
Martin Lopez joins on drums and immediately makes his presence felt on the first or the second track, April Ethereal. It's the first real concept album from them in terms of it telling a story, like a self-contained, fairly linear story. And it feels like a really complete package for me because of it. Each track is named after the final lyric of the track that precedes it, which famously. I think is really, really cool. And I think it all makes for an album that feels really unified. I think lyrically, the storytelling here makes his verbosity feel more focused and in service of something greater than mileage out of a thesaurus.
This is true. Yeah,
and I really appreciate that.
Yeah,
I think the shorter song length has them saying more in less time, which I really value. And the production here, for me, I love it. I think it drives everything home. It's a pleasure to listen to, and I think it paints a really the whole thing, the production, the lyrics, the instrumentation. It all paints this really vivid picture for me. This gothic horror tragedy love story thing. I really love immersing myself in this album, and this is the first album that does that for me. This I think could, with more listens, could pivot to an A. Wow. Yeah like the whole experience is such a joy for me that by the time we get to the epilogue, I'm excited to do it again. Right. And I feel like I don't know, man. Demon of the Fall just fucking slaps so hard, dude.
Yeah, it is a favourite for sure. Epilogue is great as well. April Ethereal is a delight. Magical is a cool interlude, but I don't have the same connection to this album that I have on any others up to this point. I think that what it is also is Orchid and Morningrise feel more unique to me. They feel like there is no other Opeth album quite like them.
Yeah, sure. Whereas you feel this does...
My Arms, Your Hearse is unique at this point in time of their catalogue.
Yeah, but in the context of the rest...
It really is.
Sure.
It feels like an early alpha of future Opeth.
Yeah, sure. I think I just appreciate so much the genuine joy and the rush I get out of hearing this album. Again, going through it chronologically, this is the first album where it doesn't feel like a slog for me.
Yeah.
Truly, I have a lot of fun with this record.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where I'm at. Let's see what chat thinks. Lo-fi death metal beats to cry in despair too. This album washes together for me, honestly. I agree, says Tundra. Opeth says, yeah, it tends to be a bit bland, but it's a nice concept. Only a few tracks stand out to me, Demon of the Fall and Karma. To me, My Arms, Your Hearse is to Blackwater Park what Orchid is to Morningrise.
You don't know what that means yet, chat.
Yeah. It's, spoilers. It's a sign of ideas yet to be fully realised in their final form. You start to see the more progressive leanings coming out, but it's definitely not a standout. IMO, My Arms, Your Hearse also marks the last album of the more traditional folk death metal era of Opeth. And Tundra says, imagine naming a song when only Opeth things.
Of course.
Yeah. All right.
Right on. Well, I would love to bounce off that expression you had of that anticipation or that rush going into an album.
Yeah, sure.
And being truly excited listening to it, saying that this is the first album.
Yeah.
You felt that with?
Yeah.
It's still lifetime, baby.
Still life, okay.
Still life. Still on top. Let's go.
Hey!
Holy shit.
Genuine excitement
Let's spin this
about an Opeth album. Fuck yeah. We don't have to intellectualize this.
No, we have to be
so good.
C for copium all the way across the board until now. I must say, I had heard and read people celebrating Morningrise, celebrating My Arms, Your Hearse, celebrating Blackwater Park to come. And Still Life was before having heard it, was a bit of an intermission, a bit of a non-album in my understanding of Opeth's progression.
Yeah.
I could not be more wrong. Oh my lord, the joy I get from this release. This, clearly defined by the S, is the best and most exciting discovery I've had from listening to an album for TDF in a long time.
Cool.
Perhaps since like the Black Dahlia murder, since Nocturnal or something.
Yeah,
long time. Or maybe Muse's Origin of Symmetry or somewhere along those lines. It's been I haven't had this level of excitement where I'll be at work and cannot wait to finish my shift so I can go home with this record in my ears. That's really good.
That's so nice.
So yeah, to me, this album is an instant classic. I'm at a loss for words. I get all emotional, welled up just thinking about this. Oh my god. I'm so excited to forge memories with this record in my ears and develop really deeply personal associations. Has not come yet. The last month we have been in lockdown number 4, and it's been a good time to listen to sad boy music. It does also mean that I haven't been able to be out and about so much in the world, and I wanted to go for a nature walk with this record and just absorb the world around me.
Yeah, go on.
I don't know a great deal of the making of this record. I believe this was the Martins' second release, was it?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
to me, this is where modern Opeth starts rather than My Arms Your Hearse in terms of its structure, Ackervelt's vocals. Oh my god, he is not a vocalist on this record. He is heralding doom. It's cool. Scary. Like every utterance on this record spells like the undoing of something beautiful. It's like cartoonishly evil.
Yeah.
Like Earthworm Jim Heck. Evil, you know? It's like Acme Co-op. Evil. It's so much fun.
I'm sure a giant mallet was exactly what was thinking of.
Wackerfelt. It's like for a record that is so that should be so joyless, I get an inordinate amount of happiness on this, and I'm sure it wasn't intended. But what I think something that really grabs me is, and speaking of beauty, are the melodies and the way that there is such a perfect balance for me of harmony and dissonance. And this is something that I have stated before on Tunes, the flagship show, that I feel the tension and release are they are the most important aspect of music and is reflected in harmony and dissonance. That one is simply purposeless without the other. And this album hits like no other in their catalogue for the beauty and the ugly, the lack of grace in some of these riffs is
putrid.
And they get less beautiful in future releases. No spoilers to say that albums like Deliverance are gratuitously gory.
Filthy.
But there's a real beauty to still life that counteracts that in so many melodies. The tone of Ackerfeld's vocal tone of this record is wonderful. I could gush over this all day.
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. For me, it's I want to share your sheer enthusiasm for this album. For me, it's just another leap forward, but not a leap into S tier for me. This sits at an A for me. Speaking of leaps in quality, this is another like new gold standard for album openers. The More is fucking awesome. It feels like this for me is the closest resemblance to the Opeth that is to bring us Blackwater Park and Ghost Reveries. It's their up to this point, for me at least, I think this is their strongest album in their discography. At this point in their career. The only thing I can think to say is that Serenity Painted Death is fucking ludicrously heavy and so cool. So fucking cool. The pinches, dude. This was another instance of like my ears pricking up and just like getting excited about Opeth. Getting excited about, music that is labeled prog. Is always welcome. I don't have anything to add to what you said. It doesn't sit. I think this is probably the most likely to jump up a rank with more listens, especially after hearing you so excited about it. I want to.
I think it was the lack of previous hype. I think like every other, I'd say with Morningrise, My Arms Your Hearse, there was some sort of expectation going in.
Sure.
Where I've gone, okay, this is like you've got something to live up to here, album. I didn't have that, and so I guess they'd set these previous albums had set a precedent for me. And I wasn't expecting my world to be rocked so hard. And that definitely plays into the rankings here. Going through these albums, listening to them chronologically, plays a very large part in rankings.
Absolutely. I mean, it's why My Arms is at a B for me.
They if we were to scatter these albums out, truly the rankings may appear otherwise. But following that artist's journey as we go is a part of the romanticism.
Totally. You know what it makes me think too? It feels like this album combines the kind of the desire to just be like to sound evil and shit of Orchid with the storytelling or like the very kind of traditional like storytelling of My Arms Your Hearse, because it's this like concept album about like dude comes back to his town, fucking everyone hates him, man, nobody gets him. And they try to like they make his girlfriend a nun and he's like, fuck that, Christians are fucking shit, man, come with me. Like it's so, and then they fucking kill his girlfriend, so he goes on like a killing spree. He's like it's so fucking like, it reads so juvenile, but I buy it every second I'm listening to this album. I'm like, fuck yeah, get him, man.
Nice.
Anyway, let's have a look here what chat thinks. Opeth says, yes! All right, there we go. You won. Matt says, what? Oh shit, I actually got My Arms and Still Life mixed up. Everything I said about My Arms, I meant to say about Still Life. Good one.
Yeah, we'll fix it in post. Don't worry.
Tundra says, this is largely where I get on the Opeth train. Completely on board with their Discog from here onward for the most part. Opeth says this album is perfect, honestly.
Wow.
Awesome. This album is the one that shows more of what's in store for what's now called Old Peth.
Yeah, right on.
That's funny. Feels like this is Blackwater Park Volume 0.5. Okay.
Right.
Still Life was around the time it felt like they decided to write actual coherent songs as opposed to long expanses of ideas.
Definitely the tracks are more defined.
Yeah, I think
this record.
I prefer Opeth when they're writing songs and not
epics.
For the most part, but we'll get into that.
I'd say that typically Opeth epics don't. The way they structure songs is I feel like there's no intent for the song to feel like the same song by the end. That's they're just taking you on a journey rather than re-delivering on themes. At least on a musical level. It may be there in the lyricism, but musically you're often going from A to like a very distant B.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Certainly not present here.
No. All right.
Lovely.
Shall we? Blackwater Park, dude.
Yeah.
So this is, whenever I've heard other people talk about Opeth, especially big fans, or this is the sort of thing where anyone from diehards to Opeth hobbyists will cite this as like the Opeth album.
Yes. Yeah. I believe that. To my understanding, this was their like where they came more global, if not charting internationally. I'll have to check that. At least this is massive name recognition.
Yeah, certainly gained
infamy.
Attention.
Yeah, for sure. So, where does the wonderful celebrated Blackwater Park sit for me? It's damn good. It's damn high up, and I would be surprised if anyone placed that otherwise relative, if not higher, to the rest of their catalogue. There is no doubt that Blackwater Park is an amazing and worth celebrating record. It is a very worthy successor to Still Life, and does to me this is the start of Opeth's golden age. For me, it starts from Still Life, but I think universally, otherwise, this would be the starting point. It's such a strong signpost. It's and something I am astounded by, floored by. I must say this before anything else. This has the best mix that I've heard from a record in a long time. I am floored by the mix here. It is sitting in such a wonderful space between old and new. And this record is just, unfortunately, like sitting a whisper away from falling into the S tier, but this mix is SSS. It's raw enough to sound humanized and unsampled, but the polish to have such depth You can wade through so many layers of this.
Yeah.
There's such a clarity to everything at the same time.
Yeah.
So you can digest the nuances on a passive listen, or you can deep dive through everything on an active listen. It feels like this album has so many modes, and I think that's a great contributor to its success. With some other albums to this point, I've found it hard to be an active listener. Here, it's so easy, and I can also have it on in the background, and I don't find it too obtrusive if I don't want it to be.
Yeah,
and it's just it hits. It's like it's a very unique way to write hooks. It's like a room of requirement. They're there when you need them to be, if you want them to be.
Yeah.
Or they can just simply set the mood.
Yeah. Fucking imagine that, going into the room of requirement. Knacker Phelps just there.
He's always there. He's always what I need. After hearing some of these releases, holy moly.
Yeah.
I am fairly familiar with Blackwater Park. This is the first record up to this point that I am already familiarized with.
Yeah, going in with a bit of an understanding of.
There was still a lot to discover and dig out. There are only a few tracks here I knew, and there is not a single weak track on this record. Which is really impressive, really impressive. It's near flawless, and I say that because I feel like I can't even think of something to criticize on this.
Yeah. So can I ask what keeps this from S tier for you?
Because I'm grading this on a bit of a bell curve, and there are only 5 slots for S tier, my dude.
Okay.
Simply, I feel that I say there's nothing to criticize here, but I mean when the S's here are so strong that they are like for me beyond any sort of criticism that I feel they have numerous let's say perfect releases.
Sure. Wow. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, and here there's a difference between flawless and perfect, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah. This record does not sound like it's 20 years old. This record could come out tomorrow, and I think that it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really impressive. Yeah. For most bands, this would be an S.
Yeah.
But we're talking about Opeth here.
Yeah. Okay. Well, fear not, because I'm here to fucking say what we're all fucking thinking.
There it is.
No, I think this album. For me, it feels like for me, especially in this, which I think is their golden era. They have a couple of albums that are just like opuses.
Yes.
And this is the first.
Yeah.
Where I feel like everything they've just been for my tastes, and I guess for my understanding of what these albums did for the metal landscape at the time, the legacy, they've just been climbing the rungs for me.
Yeah.
And this sits at an S for me.
Sure.
The keys at the start of Leper Affinity, I feel like sets a tone of like this is a new era, and we're like going for the throat. And then Leper Affinity is like the new gold standard for an opener.
Yes. Yeah.
It marks, of course, the first collaboration with Stephen Wilson, whose production shines and brings this
amazing
sense of. It's not a renewed sense of vigor. It's not like they've sounded bored on any of these, but here it sounds like they're going for the world stage. They're like, we're going to make you pay attention, and there's this sense of menace to these songs that I find really engaging. And I think what is it? It's eight songs, most of which are above the 6-minute mark, save for save for Patterns in the Ivy,
which is literally like an intermission.
Yeah. It feels
just
like
a little acoustic jam.
It feels like a series of epics.
Yeah.
But I really adore each one, and here it feels like the song length is a treat and not a trial for me.
Yeah.
I find this album so enjoyable to sit all the way through. I will block out an hour and however long, what have we got? Like an hour 15 of my day to listen to this album.
Yeah.
I want to listen to this album undisturbed. Whereas some of especially the first two albums, especially, I find myself not really bothered if I get interrupted, if I find myself not paying attention. Whereas if I find myself distracted or not paying attention during this album, I will skim back to where I last remember. Where was that riff? There we go. All right. And I feel like here is where you start to hear some of what I hear is like 70s prog rock influences starting to kind of rear their heads. At least. Is
this the first record to feature Mellotron? It might be.
No.
I think that might come a little bit later.
A little bit later.
Yeah.
I really. This album is scary good. S for scary good.
Yeah. Look, this it could be an S for me easily. It's a matter of we're hitting a golden age, and it's look. There are a lot of albums that to me are as strong as Blackwater Park, and I'd say are similar in their purpose as well.
Yeah.
This is an incredible record. And going through the track listing, there's the first 5 tracks at the very least are like go-to tracks, are legendary tracks. If I was to hear them perform anything off this album, but particularly the first 5, The Leper Affinity, Bleak, Harvest, Drapery Falls, and Dirge for November, in a live capacity is a dream. And I was lucky enough to have that happen. So,
fuck yeah.
I'll talk about that later.
Yeah, sure.
On said album.
All right, beautiful.
Right. I think I can't imagine anyone putting this album below an A. What have we got in chat?
Let's see what chat says. Well, Matt says S. Whoever says otherwise is first up against the wall. And then says friendship over.
No. Like I could. It's bell curve hits hard.
Yeah. Opeth says, thank you, Stephen Wilson for the mix. Ozzy says, this album has maybe the most amount of songs that I went back to listen to after going through the whole discography. Fuck yeah. Blackwater might be the perfect Opeth album, says Matt. The only criticism I have of it is that some songs sound the same, which usually bothers me, but for some reason it doesn't in this. But I guess it's just because all of them slay. Getting Wilson on board for this album was such a goated choice.
Yeah, in this case, I think they have a mixed history with working with Steve. This is the greatest of it, in my opinion.
Yeah. I'm trying. Wait.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember.
Like what else?
Yeah, or which album he drops off at.
Yeah, I think even on the last few, he's working with them.
Yeah. So. Okay. All right. All right. Well, I feel like we can move on.
I think everything's been said.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah. We're not breaking new ground here.
Yeah.
He drops off after Damnation. Okay. Yeah. There we go. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, almost there. Deliverance.
Yeah, dude. Now, this is okay. A justification for my A. I've got a cope here. Deliverance, the part 1 of the double album, released through 2002 and 2003, Deliverance and Damnation, a pair of studio albums. Deliverance, without a doubt, their darkest and most evil, vile work to date. This album is incredibly, incredibly aggressive and dark. And to me, it's like a Blackwater Dark. It occupies a similar space to Blackwater Park for me, in that there are albums worth of material that are near flawless, that serve this very dark, heavy Opeth, and there are like slight variances in mode, and I love that. In some cases, I'd say, okay, this feels like an inferior or just an alternate version of X album. With Opeth, like these tracks are these albums are so great and so diverse that I'm happy to have variations and alternate modes. Yeah, Deliverance is such a fucking insane song.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Yeah.
When I caught them, this was their encore, and all
Wow.
for them to come out and hit this. Woo-hoo!
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, I was hanging all set. I was like, they wouldn't do it. They wouldn't do it, would they? Yummy.
Oh, yummy, dude.
Yeah, let's go over this track listing.
Sure. Give us a sec.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. 6 tracks.
Yes. Yeah. Open up with Wreath into Deliverance. Fucking huge, crushing. Like, that is. It's hard to express how heavy this music is. Like, it's, to me, near Portal level. So it's not always about the production and the tuning. As it's the arrangement of these tracks is so fucking weighted. Everything about this makes it one of the heaviest records I've ever heard.
Yeah.
And I know it's going on about it a lot, but it's it's unpickable.
Yeah.
Yeah, Masters Apprentices, really, really fucking neat track. Once again, not a poor track on this record. I'd say Deliverance has to be one of my favorite Opeth tracks.
Yeah.
Continue to collaborate with Stephen Wilson, and this being the heavy side of this double release.
Yeah.
Makes the next album even more impactful.
Yeah, well, it certainly does what it says on the box with regards to that.
Please.
Well, I feel like this being the first half of and the heavier chapter of, as you said, what was originally intended to be a double album, showcasing the band's most contrasting sounds. I think this sits in a funny place for me. It does more than stand out as just being the heavy one. I think it sees the introduction of keys and the mellotron into their sound, which is great, from Stephen Wilson, and expands their sound more. However, I feel like those newer elements, which are a welcome addition, are delivered upon more convincingly in subsequent releases. And while there's certainly some highlights here, namely the title track, in its entirety, it's a fucking awesome track, and the ludicrously heavy turnaround in Masters Apprentices. It's like abhorrently fucking heavy, where you just go, oh, what the fuck, cunt?
Yeah, it's
are you fucking there?
To truly disgust.
Yeah, really fucking festy. And I love it. But it sits in this strange middle ground for me between two, what I would rank, or what I view as two benchmark releases in their catalog, leaving it kind of lacking a certain X factor for me, which places it at a
Okay.
I would like to feel more strongly about this album, but that's where it sits for me. But true to its word, it is spectacularly heavy. It certainly has that going for it. And that's not all it has, but yeah, I think given that where it sits in their discography, I kind of go, I've just come off of Blackwater Park, and I'm thrilled by that. Yeah. And I'm still kind of thinking about that, and I know what's to come, and I'm excited for that as well. And I'm just kind of here going, this is great. Can we? It sits in a kind of no man's land.
I really resonate with the amount of dissonance in here, and I was just talking about how important melding harmony and dissonance is. No harmony, no fun harmony to be had here. It's really seeing how many tritones and minor seconds you can compound into an hour. It's in minor third city. You leave this listening to like cleaner music, with some sense of disdain. I think, at least myself.
Not as grand as Deliverance.
Yeah, disgusting.
This.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
And it's something that I really enjoy.
Okay.
And yeah, if it was executed by another band, I feel like deathcore often tries to replicate this same mood, and it doesn't land the same. The additional atmospheric elements probably help propel that a lot. That you can, I guess it maybe legitimizes the overabundance of dissonant elements.
Yeah.
And the breakdown, the breakdown of Deliverance is probably my favorite breakdown in history.
Which bit's that? Is that how they end the track?
Yes.
Yeah. That's really,
the outro is
really
insane.
Fucking sexy. Matt says Deliverance is B tier. All right, fuck yeah. I mean, Matt's good books. Opeth says Wreath is weak, but the rest of the album is S tier.
I really like Wreath.
Matt says, I find that the title track is the absolute standout on this album. Most of the other songs I find largely forgettable, honestly. Deliverance, the song is S tier, the album itself otherwise is pretty middle of the road. Opeth says, A Fair Judgment is one of the most mature Opeth songs. Okay. I'll have to go back and listen to that one. Matt says, interesting fact, Michael wrote this album in the studio, writing at night and recording during the day. He wrote it purposely trying to prove himself and his audience that he can still write heavy music, even though at the time he was not listening to any metal music at all. Okay. Yep. Hey, well...
That makes sense for what's to immediately come.
Yeah, definitely. And Tundra says, love Deliverance, so satisfyingly heavy. And gorgeous Jesse joins us in chat.
Jess.
How you doing, Jess?
How are we doing?
Shall we?
Yes, absolutely. Let's move on to the second half of... this duality.
Yeah, the other side of the coin.
Yes, Damnation. What can I say about Damnation? It's probably in my top 10 records of all time, is what I can say about it.
Wow.
I am incredibly biased on Damnation. This is my hangover album, and you bet I listened to it this morning. It's been a favorite of mine for over 5 years now, and probably my favorite acoustic album. It goes without saying that this is, for me, an S. The first few tracks of this record never cease to make me feel so morose, so melancholy, and whether I view it through an emotional lens or more of an analytical, rhythmic or polyrhythmic lens, it always astounds. It always astounds. The passages of Window Pane and In My Time of Need, the vocal delivery on In My Time of Need, bop bop bop, the 3/2. Whew. It's something special. It's so unique and it's such a standout to me that was it instantly hooked me, and running through the rest of the album all the way through to ending credits and Weakness, and that combined with Lamentations.
Yes.
The following live DVD really helps add weight to this album. However, I'm trying not to use that on the album itself, but it certainly does help. It's such a wonderful, wonderful performance. There's a real maturity on display here, and I feel that it does not compromise, or there's no the gimmick. Let's call it the gimmick of no just real truly distorted elements on this record. Does not feel cheap.
No,
it does not. At least to myself. It feels completely justified, and having the experience of writing so much dissonant material in the past and coming from that headspace really shines, even though they're only using mellotrons, closed, open and closed snares, and so many acoustic elements. It's an album I can feel that bittersweet joy from that I put it on. And it truly does benefit from a full listen.
Yeah, cool. I would say that while this is a kind of music that I'm less immediately interested in, this isn't the sort of thing that I ordinarily pick up. I find it much more compelling than its heavier counterpart.
Interesting.
Places it in A form.
Right.
The atmosphere that they conjure, I think, is the best word for it on this record. is so instantly absorbing. And I think the shorter runtime of this album, I feel like this is their shortest album. It has to be.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, it would be.
I feel like it's around the 40 or so minute mark. Let me just double check that.
Which is
we're dealing with the 43-minute album here.
What the hell?
Thank fuck. Makes repeat listens such a pleasure.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, for the time it was such a radical departure, but I think it's they maintain their unique sense of beauty and sorrow, which gives it an X factor that I think Deliverance lacks for me a bit. Look, we've heard them do heavy. We haven't heard them do this. At this point. I think the whole thing is executed so finely. It never feels gimmicky or disingenuous. Conversely, it feels utterly it's like so well realized and earnest.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it for that reason. I wouldn't be surprised if this jumped up a rung as well.
This I feel like many albums here could move and pivot. If we are to revisit this list with more time allotted, because simply a month plus wasn't enough, clearly. There's a lot of history here to eat through. I can see this being the most shifty TDF since. And may I note, have we not had a single album yet on the same tier? Is that what I'm reading?
Oh my god, we're not sucking each other's dicks for once!
That's after stream.
I'm getting blue balls just looking at this list.
Yeah, dude.
Alright, chat, what do y'all think?
Tell me what you think about Damnation, chat.
Matt says Damnation is easily at least an A. I'm not sure if I'll put it in an A or S. It's like an A+. Alright, cool. Ozzy says this album is where I found out... Wait, alright. I don't know how to read that. That paragraph has 0 punctuation in it. Okay, but he said A from me. There we go. That's what we need. Opeth says this is the album you can show your non-metal friends.
It is.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, for sure.
And it might still be a bit, I don't know, sinister. It's a very sinister release. There's something lying under the surface of these murky waters that if you were to show your friends, they'd probably get a sense of something wrong. There's something amiss.
Well, yeah, I think they would listen to it and be like, yeah, it's pretty, but I'm looking over my shoulder like I'm uncomfortable, you know? It's cool.
For sure.
It might be clean, but it's still sad.
Yeah, dude.
Who would have non-metal friends? Absolutely, Brian. No, not us. Melancholy. It's absolutely a melancholy album, Matt, for sure. That's the word.
Yeah, truly it is.
Word
that's the word I've used to describe for years.
Yeah.
As I jam it down people's throats. Such a good album to sleep to as well. This is a really soothing record.
Yeah, I found this one great for when I want to listen to something, but I don't want it to be too full on. This is a go-to.
Yeah. This sits in the realm of maybe Devin Townsend's Ghost.
I was going to say, I having just come around on Ghost, I rank it similarly, or I hold them in a similar regard. They serve a similar purpose for me.
Yeah, just sitting at the bar, smashing out a Depresso martini. Time to sleep forever. Yeah, good shit. All right, well, let's move on. We can't be sad boys forever.
No.
Well, we can be. We don't have a choice. We're only halfway through this fucking discography. However, I digress. Ghost Reveries. Now, we come out of the duet album into 2005. We're now in the mid-2000s. Metalcore's popping off, dude. Let's go. What's Opeth got to say about that? The release, Ghost Reveries. This, to many, I think, could be the gateway album for Opeth. It was for me. I'm not sure how many others feel similarly. But this is an album that has, similar to Damnation, stuck with me and evolved through my understanding of Opeth's different shades. It's certainly not as broad-ranging as many of Opeth's other albums. It's a far more static release, but it's such a wonderful home, I think. that this is where my heart lies with Opeth. It's an S for me. In time, as I spend more time with the more extreme elements of Opeth's catalogue, I think this could be the first time I'll say this. It might be an S that falls to an A. I don't think I've ever ranked something that's an S where I feel that it may fall in time.
Okay.
This is such a like universal. It's like an easy Mona Lisa. It is so consumable, and that is something that is not in most of Opeth's catalogue.
Yes.
That I can easily take bite-sized chunks of this album, and it'll make perfect sense. With most albums from Opeth, if I listen to one track, I feel like there might be a little bit of context missing here. Each of these songs feels super standalone and also very marketable, which is something I can't say for Deliverance, for Still Life, for maybe Blackwater Park has a bit more of that.
Yeah.
But it's super on display here, and it's clear that this is a real turning point in Opeth's popularity, especially abroad.
Yeah, absolutely. No doubt.
We'll go through the track list. Cons, if you want to take us through, and you can run.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, you say like this album having a commercial or like a marketable quality to it. It's the first album on Roadrunner Records, for one thing. It's the first sans Steve Wilson for this era, and the first to feature Per Weiberg. Have I written that right? New guy on keys, and the last to feature Martin Lopez on drums, and Peter Lindgren on guitar. It's the new contender for strongest opener. Goddamn, Ghost position is ridiculous. For me, absolutely sits at an S. This feels like the culmination of everything the band has been producing up to this point, and it's expertly executed to deliver what is undoubtedly their opus.
Yeah.
Opeth opus.
Yeah. The Magnum Opeth.
Yeah, the Magnum Opeth. I feel like this and Blackwater Park sit as very clear standouts for me. I would rank this, if we could go into double S territory, this would be up there.
Right.
It's engaging and rewarding throughout its entire runtime. I think it definitely swings from the more emotive passages to like unnervingly heavy moments, and manages to strike a really wonderful middle ground when it's not, when it's in the area between those, those peaks.
I feel like they pulled back on the intensity, and it helps to promote in like the generally intensity's pulled back a little, and then when they let loose, it's even more effective.
It's impactful. Yeah.
It's a far more contained album.
Yeah, what
maybe
I found
like Ritual.
Yeah, for sure. What I found listening to this, because I went into this Tears Don't Fall thinking that this would be an S pick.
Same.
Like this is nothing new. We're not saying anything new here.
Yeah.
But even to me, what I really took away from this record in this context, going through it in a chronological order, is just how much of a triumph this album feels like. Like it really just feels like, I don't know, like just a statement of we are the biggest progressive metal band there is and will ever be. Fuck you. Like it's ballsy. I think save for the closer, Isolation Years feels like more of an epilogue track than a final climax.
This is nothing new in their catalogue though.
Yeah,
they
of course.
Repeatedly.
It's appropriate and it's beautiful. And I love the way it closes things out. But in terms of like full songs, Ghost of Perdition and Grand Conjuration, kind of bookending the meat of the album, are two not just album highlights but career highlights. I don't know, every track feels distinct, and as though you can just listen to any of these tracks on their own, but to listen to them together, it feels like they're all serving a greater whole. And I do like the way Isolation Years ends things on a kind of bitter, somber, bittersweet, somber note.
Yeah, for a change.
I really adore it. And I do have though a tale to tell with regards to the Grand Conjuration. I got fucking PTSD about this song, dude. The last time before, I haven't listened to this album. I haven't listened to this album for a good 2 years at this point, and there's a reason for that. Because I was at a party for the first time trying MDMA. Somebody was using the UE Boom, the speaker, the Bluetooth speaker, and was playing a bunch of like bubblegum pop, Katy Perry, Taylor Swift shit. And I'm like, this is the vibe. This is great.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to come up. All right, let's do it. I'm having a great time. And then some fucking genius puts on the Grand Conjuration, and I lost my fucking mind. I had to leave and spent the next hour just trying to like come down from this horrible trip.
Just locked in a dark bedroom.
It was fucking awful, dude. Just the malevolence.
The vibe.
Soaking in those riffs was just enough to just go, bad trip. Like the vibe turned on me because of those riffs.
Felt just demonic.
Dude.
Yeah.
So I haven't listened to this album since.
That's so funny.
Yeah, coming back to it, I was like, it was with some trepidation.
Yeah.
But yeah, fucking amazing song. And I mean, like, it just is. Those riffs are like just oozing with malice. They're fucking awesome.
Yeah. It's wonderful.
Yeah, great record. Let's see what chat thinks.
Yeah.
Easy S for Ghost Reveries, says Matt. Fuck yeah. Jesse says, this was the first I heard. Fuck yeah. Their most evil album if it weren't for Isolation Years, says Opeth. Isolation Years, definitely a good mood change for the album, but it's so beautiful I can't fault it, says Matt. I adore this album, but I must admit it has some filler.
What's the filler for you? Maybe like Atonement? I love every song on this album.
Yeah.
Maybe Atonement's the weakest.
It's a good thing these songs slap so hard that they slap this right back up to S. Blackwater Park is more consistently good, whilst Ghost Reveries hits higher highs but lower lows, IMO. Okay, cool. Ghost Reveries was my first Opeth album, and also the album that got me to like harsh vocals, says Matt.
Wow. Well, yeah, look, it was definitely up there for me. And like beyond vocal fry and into like these grungy growls.
Yeah, I think at this point, listening to this album when I got that bag of CDs and chucking this on, kind of after reading this article in Metal Hammer and having an idea of the legacy that this album has and wanting to get it, and by that point having much more of an affinity for death metal and really growled vocals. Hearing that as soon as it kicks in, the start of Ghost Petition just blew me away. Really, his vocals are demonic, Yeah. Just says, been there with music and droogs.
Yeah.
It says, vibe hostile, vibe vile.
Yeah, I don't think our reactions could have been any different at that point in time.
Yeah, you were loving it. Yeah, that's right. You were tripping too.
Yeah. Oh, dude, I was absolutely stoked.
Yeah. Masses Beneath the Mire and Atonement slow it down for me. Okay. Oh yeah. Shall we move on?
Absolutely. Let's go
out to the shed, kids.
Absolutely. It's wet out here.
Uh-huh.
It's a stompy, swampy watershed. Now this, if Ghost Reveries wasn't doing enough for international fame and acclaim, Watershed, aptly named, just launched Opeth into the spotlight and into the charts. I've got to say,
top of the pops, it's Opeth with Heir Apparent. Fucking Jesus.
Yeah.
Oh fuck.
So good. So cool.
Yeah.
Heir Apparent is such a delight.
Yummy.
Yeah. Between Heir Apparent and Deliverance, you've got all you could ever need. That's your bangers and mash right there.
Yeah.
That's your brain after just bangers and mush.
That's my brain after fucking MP, dude.
Yeah, be grateful that you got Great Conjuration and not Heir Apparent.
Yeah, true.
You would have simply detonated. I'm going to say Watershed has some of the strongest tracks off the bat of their career, I think. Opening Coil, a really brave turn.
Yeah.
Opening Coil into Heir Apparent. And then Lotus Eater after that, just keeping the hate train going.
Yeah.
For me, I've got to do the reveal of where this is sitting before I talk anymore. This Watershed is sitting at an A. If it wasn't for the last few tracks that I feel slow the album down, this would also be an S.
Yes. Okay, cool.
That's what holds it back for me. Because the first 7 tracks, going through some more Burden into Porcelain Heart. Oh, Burden is amazing. Oh my God, the melodies in Burden. About 3 minutes in.
Yeah. Shit'll make you weep.
Oh, wow. Yeah, absolutely. Asian Peel and Hex Omega, live, I believe it's a live staple. Flawless. Cannot say anything beyond the sense of modernity they bring into more of their folk elements coming back. So I'm just listening to Coil's running in the background right now, and I'm just getting taken away.
Come back to us.
Yeah. It's absolutely wonderful. It's hard to come back to. Like, it really takes me away. Listening to this album really takes me into Opeth's world. Takes me into the Ackerfeld zone.
Yeah.
And it's inescapable. It's a beautifully performed record. And deserves all of the accolades it receives. Cons, what are your thoughts?
Hey, not since Scatman's World have I been so drawn into the world of an artist. This sits very, very similarly for me at an A. This is where we're starting to get matchy here. I think it's a really apt title, given that this is the last to feature your death growls. It also feels like...
I don't know if this was planned. I wonder if there was an intent saying this is what's interesting. Finality of this era.
This is what's interesting, is this feels like this feels like a conclusion for this era of Opeth, and it feels like a logical conclusion for this era of Opeth. There's a real sense of catharsis on this record, and I say real sense, I mean visceral, like you feel it, that I find really, really compelling. And it's not just the aggression, though there's plenty of that. See Heir Apparent, of course, which has a track, when it kicks in, it feels as though it's going to fall apart. It's going to tear itself apart.
Oh my God, it is shaking the rails.
Absolutely.
Turbulence.
But there's also this... the more the beautiful passages have this as heavy as Heir Apparent is, Burden is as tender, you know. And I think they both manage to kind of stand above anything that they've released previous to this, in terms of say Damnation. Damnation was like the most tender they got up to that point. This does that better than Damnation.
I think this album, more than any other, demands your attention.
Yes.
It's hard for this album to just be on the background for all the atmosphere that it has. It is like without fault an active listen. It helps it's such a dynamic album. Like the decibel reader here is launching up and down at an alarming rate.
For me,
and it really just so immersive.
Wow. Where you say demands attention, I think that's absolutely right. Where Blackwater Park, I mentioned, I really like to devote an hour to that album. This one, I found I couldn't. I couldn't start it and do something else. I really needed to give this album my full attention. The the reason it sits at an A and not an S for me is similarly, I feel like the last couple of tracks aren't quite as strong as the first 5 for my tastes.
Yeah.
I wanted to put this at an S. I really did. So I hope
a shorter album. If they
climbs up.
If they cut the last few tracks, this would be S for me.
Yeah, sure.
I just Bridge of Sighs, and I haven't actually said the final track out loud before.
I mean, are they bonus tracks?
Are they?
I
thought I should check that because
I was
in that case I might.
I was under the impression that Hexamaga was the final track. Yeah, Hexamaga is the final track proper. The other 3 are bonus tracks.
It is. I didn't check. I've been running the special edition.
Okay.
Aha. This makes more sense.
Yeah. Well, hey, definitely come back to it. See if the
I'm gonna have to come back to this because I think I'm gonna have a real shake up of my list.
Yeah.
As I familiarize myself with the intricacies of this discography.
Yeah.
This could be an easy S.
Yeah. Cool. It still sits at an A for me at this point, just because I feel like thanks
Tundra. Something I missed.
I think Blackwater Park and Ghost Reveries feel really they're so clean, so deliberate, so obviously S picks. Watershed for me feels as though its experimentation comes at the cost of a unified quality that I really like in those other 2 that I put at S. So for the time being, it sits at an A for me. But you mentioned, we're talking about like the fact that this is kind of the end of an era, or like the intent, whether or not that was the intent. And I feel like whether or not it was going into it, I think after making this, it makes total sense where they go from here. Yeah. Given that it's no coincidence that Ackerfeld had become a father in the lead up to this album. And like talking in interviews describes that sensation and the new chamber of emotions kind of opening up within him that he didn't realize he had. So that anger and that sadness and that appreciation of beauty feels more heartfelt, more real than ever. He describes being just watching the TV, watching the news, and just crying because he's got this human that he's brought into the world. I think it's a really cool example of an artist's art growing with them and being a real representation of that growth. For all those reasons, I really want to rank this as an S, and I hope I do eventually.
I feel like I've made a mistake putting it at an A, in all honesty. I've got some instant regret.
made a mistake. The same pick as me. Huh? Okay.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I just think it's funny that Anyway, let's see what chat thinks. Coil is such a beautiful song, but why the fuck didn't they do a third verse where they both duet and sing together? Why? Says Matt.
Yes.
That would have been great.
Yeah.
But then we would have had another minute before getting into Heir Apparent, dude. Burden is gorgeous. Yeah, Burden is really gorgeous, and I love the end where he's like playing the acoustic guitar.
And the tuning.
Yeah. Very cool.
Delightful. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Matt says,
iconic.
I think Porcelain Heart lets the album down for me. In comparison, though, Heir Apparent and Lotus Eater are easy career highlights for them.
I agree.
Dag says Scatman's World is the peak of human design. Can't agree more.
That's what Ackerfeld was watching on the news. That's why I was crying with joy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he was watching Scatman's World, and he's like, hopefully one day my son can go to Scatman's World. Last Opeth album too. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Definitely left this phase of their career out on a bang.
No whimpers.
First album with Martin Axelrod. Yes, on drums, maybe? I don't know. I didn't double check. Yeah. I feel like, are we done with Old Peth?
Yeah, we're done with Old Peth. We've
Peth?
Yeah. We've hung on Old Peth for long enough, chat. It's time to usher in the new. And boy, isn't everyone excited for Heritage? Chat, why is chat flying so fast for Heritage, huh? Jeez, everyone's clambering to get onto Heritage. Let's talk about Heritage. For many people, it wasn't great. For long-time fans, it wasn't great.
Oh, I'm so bummed that we have to move on to Heritage tracks as well. How disappointing.
I'm not. Hi, I'm the prog guy. Let me tell
you. Prog
me tell
guy.
you about
Who
Heritage.
invited prog guy to the party? All right, go on.
Yeah, right. I'll stand in the corner watching everyone else dance. No worries. You can join me. Come to the corner. Heritage is, I'd say, possibly their most maligned album of their discography. If only I shared that sentiment. The opening tracks on this record alone mean that this album cannot drop at least below a B for me.
Wow.
Yeah. I quite enjoy putting this album on in the background. It was the first Opeth I heard numerous times over, and I'm sure that that's left some standing impact. But I really appreciate the change of direction that they've made. Totally understand why people wouldn't like it. And if I think many criticisms of this album are valid, that this album falls within my ballpark and I really enjoy it. I think as much of a risk as it was, I think it was aptly executed. And I think it could have been far worse. Let's go. I'll give it a B because it could have been worse. But just for the sake of a lot of the amount of criticism this album has received, I feel like anything below, anything above a D for many, like, I think this album is underappreciated, and there are a lot of beautiful moments to be had. I'd say towards the back end of the album, it does get a bit dull, uninspired, or dreary. And at that point, you could be asking yourself, why am I not just listening to Blue Oyster Cult instead? For the front half, I really, really enjoy Devil's Orchid. I Feel the Dark. I think they are standout tracks in their career. And I really enjoy this following Watershed. I think it's a bold statement and one that resonates with me. Being a fan of like King Crimson and the this sits very well at home for me.
Cool.
Cons, tell me how you feel about 70s prog.
Okay, so I think it is a bold move, especially after Watershed, but it's one that I think makes sense. You feel the dark, I feel the D, dude. I don't appreciate it. It makes sense, and I'm sure it's really well executed. God, the prog is just going in my ears. And
I Feel the Dark is great. I hear so much. People pay this track out. I think
I'm not paying it out for. Yeah. I don't.
I really don't understand the criticism. But
this is just not for me. This is just not music that I have any interest in. I do not know from whence I speak on this kind of music, and I don't have any context for what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
So I just feel like it's just going over my head. This album feels like homework. Heritage is fucking homework for me, for this listener. I just have no fun with it, and I really didn't want to feel like this. I wanted to get something out of this era of Opeth, and I wanted to come into this era of Opeth with a good attitude and an open mind. But it doesn't appeal to me. I feel like it's really self-indulgent.
It is.
And I'm sure
towards the back end.
I'm sure to people who appreciate this kind of music, he's doing a lot of things right. But for me, I'm just like, kind of bored.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would rather be listening to anything else in their discography at this point.
Yeah. Including Orchid. It's worse than Orchid.
I would rather listen to Orchid. Yeah, right. Absolutely.
Right. For me, something I found quite interesting with Heritage, and I was not aware of until I started on the discography, was that this album is not so much a change or a first for Opeth as much as it is them finally coming full circle. And I think that for those that only listen to old Peth, let's say if we were to break them up into 3 eras, where
Candlelight Years, Old Peth,
that this is a return to Candlelight Years in many ways, if not tonally, at least in terms of their
compositionally,
in terms of their influences.
Okay,
I think there's certainly like a 70s prog that's creeping around in Orchid, and it's revisited here with an unrelenting purpose. Whether that's too much for most people, totally understand. To go from Watershed to have that expectation of another Watershed and then get this would be very disappointing if you if you don't fuck with masturbation. Guess what? I got nothing better to do. I don't feel that this album is so self-indulgent. Due to the change of direction, I still really... I feel like they're going over a lot of ground for the first time with this bent, and I really enjoy that.
Okay. Yeah, I placed this at a D not because I think it's like bad music. It's just so not in my wheelhouse. I think that's zero interest. Yeah. Let's have a look here. Opeth says, I love Heritage. S tier.
Yes.
Hey,
S,
fuck yeah.
S, wow.
Matt says, I think Heritage is underrated, easily an A. Tundra says, Heritage is all right. I prefer to digest the... I prefer the first half to the second half.
Yeah, easily.
Matt says he loves this album tonally.
Yes, likewise.
So dark and sinister without needing the metal stylings. Lines in My Hand is also such a great drum groove.
Yeah, I love the drum work on this album. I feel like there's so much more space for the drums to improvise. Everything feels very loose, which is something we haven't had with Opeth for a while. Opeth, between, I'd say, in particular, from Deliverance through to Watershed, they become more and more groove-oriented in sections, and increasingly clinical with their rhythms. Here, everything really loosens up again.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy that.
Scandi says, hey, by the way, welcome to the show.
Hey,
says, I think something that didn't help with the general, the public opinion of this album was that whenever they toured it, they straight up dropped all harsh vocal tunes from their set.
Make Opeth growl again.
That's I was under the impression that was still the case. Listening to this discography, I was quite saddened to go, shit, I think I've missed a golden era of a band like no other. Was relieved to hear from friends, no, they still play the heavy stuff.
Yes.
They still growl live.
Yes.
So that's good. Shall we move on?
We shall. We'll move on to Sorceress.
No.
Sorry, we won't. Sorry, my mistake.
No,
Pale
won't.
Communion. Okay.
You got a communion first, baby.
Do we have to?
You're not getting dessert until your communion, motherfucker.
Oh, do we have
communion wafer.
Right.
Yummy.
All right, well, let's talk about fucking Pale Communion. There's an interesting factoid about this album, actually. The promotional release for Pale Communion was actually called Pale Imitation. But Roadrunner Records deemed it unmarketable, so they made a last-minute change.
Is that true?
No. It's just that this album really fucking... Pale Communion is just a pale comparison to Heritage. It's a D.
Wow, hey, we got one.
It's a D. There had to be one.
Yeah.
Everything you said about Heritage is how I feel about Pale Communion.
Right.
Heritage was Brave New World. Pale Communion is Heritage too, but this time it's not as groundbreaking.
The Electric Boogaloo is not winning you over.
Yeah. Matt says easy S.
We'll get to that.
What?
We'll get to
S
that.
for snooze?
Keep digging that grave, boy. I'm going to keep that belt.
Yeah, for me, I'll take Heritage over Pale Communion any day of the week.
Okay.
And I feel like they are the same. Honestly, for me, they are largely the same mode. It might be that I have a chip on my shoulder and I haven't given this the time of day then, because I just had no fun with Pale Communion.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
May I?
Please.
Because for me, I'm just slightly, but enough, more on board with this, dude. This 60°C, I would sooner revisit this than Heritage. For me, I feel like there's a bit more, like from the first track, there's a bit more of that Damnation sense of foreboding and brooding that makes this record feel more poignant and less self-indulgent.
I feel this
overall,
is far more.
making it, for me, feel like a more focused record made with the listener in mind. I feel considered when listening to this album.
Interesting.
I think the last track is particularly beautiful, and I think as much as I may pine for the days of hearing newly recorded Ackerfeld growls, I think his vocals are really shine on this album. I feel like here's where I get to hear him kind of going, okay, I don't do the growl thing anymore. I better get really good at singing. And broadening that skill set, I liked this album more than Heritage. I was glad to like this album more than Heritage. I really, with Heritage being, I think I said to you the day after I listened to it, saying I feel like Heritage was homework, dude, and I feel like these 4 albums from here on is going to be homework, and I'm really not looking forward to it. So I maybe just the chronological approach, similar to My Arms Your Hearse, where I went like, oh fucking here we go. Here I was just pleasantly surprised to not hate everything I was hearing. Puts it to sleep for me. I would rather listen to this than Heritage.
Yeah, look, for me, this album is a chore. I feel that, it just fails to develop a unique identity compared to Heritage. And it's the first time in the catalogue that this has happened for me. I'd say with, for me, all of my A-tier listings, Blackwater Park, Deliverance, and Watershed, they all have their own identity, but they have enough of a similar mood, even though at different points in their career, that if I'm in the mood for heavy Opeth, that these are somewhat interchangeable in the immersion and joy I'll get from hearing their unique stylings. I'll always take Heritage over Communion at this point. I'll go back to it, have another listen, but I sat on this album longer than I wanted to, because I wanted to get it, and I just found myself liking it less and less.
Wow.
I feel like the performances are excellent on a technical level, but the structure and production are quite sterile. It just unfortunately was not my bag, and I'm surprised. It should have been my bag.
Fair enough.
I feel like it's progressive rock without either highlighting the progressive or the rock.
Sure.
I see Matt saying that Pale Communion is a perfect prog rock album. I don't have highlights here for me. To me, reads as the marketing attempt of a brand over a band for the first time, and it just hasn't. I don't know. It's strange to see. Matt, and even yourself enjoying this more. I'm really surprised.
No, absolutely enjoyed it.
It's I'd say it feels. This is Polyphia, but on the other side of the prog pond for me, where Opeth are imitating 70s rock, but it feels rather soulless, or I'd rather go to the source material instead of hearing their take on it.
Sure, okay.
There are so many albums of this style that I'd love and would rather listen to than Opeth's in my opinion, inferior take.
Okay, sure. Well, Tundra says Pale is a bit of a chore, bit of a slog.
Yeah, look, they're like...
You're not alone.
Like, Cusp of Eternity is cool. It's far faster paced, but it's a slow album. It's a really slow album. And there are a few interesting tracks on display, but like apart from the single slot, it doesn't carry the rest of the record.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
doesn't hold a candle to a candle-laden catalogue.
Let's move on to slightly spookier pastures, shall we?
Yes.
Sorceress.
Hello, Sorceress. Haven't seen you in a while, actually. I recall very much so the release of Sorceress. This was the first album to release after I was an Opeth fan. So, and when I became once the penny dropped on Ghost Reveries.
Yeah, right.
And
you went, I like Opeth.
Yeah, which would have been around the Pale Communion era.
So this is like ground floor.
So this is the first ground floor, really. Yeah. Or maybe I think maybe Pale Communion came out, but obviously wasn't for me. This is the first one that I listened to, and I thought, oh, this is interesting. And Sorceress, the title track, undoubtedly, I'd say, if nothing else, interesting.
Yeah.
They're taking a lot of the more complicated elements out of their sounds, and if anything, maybe a little too simplified. But it's despite not really enjoying the album, the singles do help carry this enough for it to be a C.
Okay.
I think at this point I am still sort of I'll take heritage in this 70s prog rock style. At least this has more of a unique identity for me. And I think to me it's a bit more fun.
Yeah, sure. Sure, I could totally.
Yeah, it's a bit more fun.
Feel that.
Sorceress is cool. Will o' the Wisp is cool. I don't feel like the album has much going for it outside of that. But this was when I saw Opeth live on this tour.
Cool.
And it was... and so Sorceress holds some importance to me because of that. Their set list was really interesting because it was 11 songs and deriving from 10 albums.
Wow.
Yeah. So at this point they had 12 albums, and they hit 10 of them. I think it would have been everything except maybe Orchid and Morningrise. Yeah, so really displaying their career.
That's cool.
There. And they played Heir Apparent and Deliverance in the same set.
Fucking A, dude. That's
very
awesome.
angry set. Yeah, they say Opeth don't growl anymore.
Angry.
Yeah, I was not expecting that one. I was in the same mindset.
Yeah.
Thought maybe they're only going to play clean songs. I didn't want to look at the set list for the tour.
Yeah, sure.
And that rocked my socks.
Fuck yeah. That would have been a wonderful welcome surprise.
And they played In My Time of Need. Toasty.
Yummy.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll stop fanboying.
Yeah.
Please tell me your thoughts on Sorceress, Cons.
I remember people really popping off about this album when it came out. I got the impression that people were going, "Oh, Opeth are they're back in prog form," and people were popping.
Yeah, it is a standout album cover.
Yeah,
we haven't talked about the album.
The cover is gorgeous.
The
cover is cool.
Possibly my favorite cover. It's really tough.
Yeah, I think it might be. Like, Heritage is distinct in just how fucking bizarre it looks. Their fucking head on the trees and shit. Yeah. It's wacky.
Yeah,
this is brutal. This is a really cool mix of brutal and beautiful.
Yeah.
Which I do like. I wish I liked the album more, but I like it more than Heritage.
Yep.
So there's that. I think this portion of their career is just so not my wheelhouse that I find it hard to feign enthusiasm for it. But I will say for this album, I would like to appreciate it a little bit more. Maybe I'll come back to it. I like the spooky, scary skeleton organ stuff.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Okay, we're really reaching now.
Yeah, that's
nice
it.
Things.
That's all. That's all.
This doesn't read as the structuring doesn't read as a band that has done what Opeth has done for me.
No.
I feel like they're getting weird with it, without like for the sake of shaking flow and to be weird.
Yeah.
They might be a very ignorant thing to say, but
it feels like they're
challenging structure and certain people's conception for the sake of doing so.
Yeah.
Without it being without a clear purpose to the benefit of the track.
Yeah. I will say, I don't think, and I think I would say this for Heritage even, none of it sounds disingenuous. It doesn't sound like they're trying to be anything they're not genuinely interested in. They're following their fascinations and stuff, and that's great, but it's just not really to my liking. Let's see what chat thinks.
Sorry, I just saw what Matt's saying. Matt and Time Traveler. Oh my god.
Sorceress is a D. It's probably the only Opeth album I would actually describe as bad. Wow.
It's all in this era.
Lucas says title track Cashmere Strut hooks me.
It is more of a hook than it deserves to be.
Yeah. Even though I rate Orchid so low, at least it was somewhat interesting. Tundra, on the other hand, says, I absolutely love Sorceress. Insanely underrated. S for me. One of the first Opeth albums that grabbed my attention. Wow.
That's really interesting.
It's a crime that Connor rates this higher than Heritage. It's the Saint Anger of Opeth albums. Good grief.
Insane. Mission statement. Let's go.
Yeah, goddamn. Dear. And welcome to chat, Daniel. I feel like, can we move on? We got one more to go here.
How to know how we're going for time, we'll see. Let us know when we see the YouTube runtime.
Yeah, exactly.
You go, oh my god, I'll have to sit through this.
They've done it again!
3 hours, let's go. All right, in Cauda Venenum. I always got
Venenum.
Yeah, this is a tongue twister. In Cauda Venenum.
You seen the trailer for the new Venenum movie?
Venenum 2.
All right.
Woo! That's cool. It's okay. It's more of this. The choral, the wild choral R's are a point of difference. That's for sure. I'd say it has more breadth and there's more on display than Sorceress. And I'd sooner listen to this than Sorceress, but I wouldn't put it in the same tier as Heritage. So it's sitting in between B and C. And I'm certainly not going to...
We don't have a rung for that, Luke.
No.
Where is this album?
It's going to go on the ladder.
Okay.
Because I don't... In my limited experience with this album, it's definitely the one I've given the least attention to. Mm-hmm. So probably has the most chance to change. By the time I got to album 13 in this discog, I've discovered so much music through 13 or 12 to this being the 13th that I just want to keep going back to Still Life. I just want to keep going back to Blackwater Park, to Watershed. There's so much new material for me to dip my dirty little grubby fingers through as I flick through all of these albums for the first time. God damn, I cannot wait to blow a few $100 on Opeth records next time I'm at a record store. Really looking forward to making some pickups. I digress. All of that has sort of taken my attention away from this record. And there's it's technically brilliant. There's a lot of clarity to all the pieces. Say probably more so than Sorceress. It's just a C.
Okay.
Now.
Okay.
I need to familiarize myself more overall, I think, to have a truly comfortable opinion.
For me, this of this phase of their career, this feels like the most Opeth album. Tonally. For what I expect from an Opeth album.
Okay.
So this sits at a B for me. I enjoy this the most of the last 4 albums they've put out, and genuinely enjoy it. I think it's still a kind of music that I am not ordinarily drawn to, but the atmosphere that they create feels more in line with Damnation or their earlier stuff. And I like the choral R's and stuff. I like everything new that they're doing, and I like the kind of dipping of the toe back into something familiar, at least for me. Look, I rank it at a B because I don't want to be so negative on this era of Opeth.
Yeah.
This is the one that I genuinely enjoy the most. And I will listen to it more to see if that ranking holds true if we ever revisit these.
Yeah.
But overall, like the last 4 albums have just not been my wheelhouse.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't dislike I largely don't dislike the direction that Opeth are in. Unfortunately, what might be more comfortable for Opeth now, where they are performing this, that it's less distinct. They're treading over already very well-treaded ground, where they were cutting swathes and creating paths hitherto unheard of before with their music. I feel like they're now recreating rather than creating with the 70s prog stylings. I don't feel that they're adding enough to revitalize the genre, rather that they're playing like original covers.
Right, okay.
That they're playing essentially like standards and getting jazzy with it. Yeah, that's that. My time with these later albums.
Yeah,
it's not quite the same, but
yeah.
I don't think it deserves on the whole as much disdain as it has received since. Naturally, it's quite mimetic. It's easy to riff and take the piss out of Opeth. I don't think that's so deserved, but look, there are some stinkers in this back end.
All right.
I think that's about all we have to say.
Yeah, I want to see...
What did we clock in at this point?
I want to see what chat thinks.
Yeah.
Matt says in Cauda Venenum is Resident Sleeper.
Yeah.
It's like a heavier Pale Communion, but it hits none of the notes it should. I found it really quite boring. To use our favourite word, milk toast. Well, to use my favourite retort, you just haven't had good milk or toast, my man. C tier purely because it's not worse than Sorceress. Scandi says ICV is a clear step up for me. However, I think the English version was a mistake. Takes away some of its identity. I've only listened to the English version. So is it a subs not dubs thing? Have I been consuming this Opeth anime incorrectly?
Yeah.
Please tell me if that's the case. ICV is their most mature record, honestly.
Yeah, and Missionary is the most mature position. That's...
All right, well, that's another conversation. Perhaps after this, we'll compare Opeth records to
we'll pull out the Akafelt Sutra.
Yeah, dude. The Karma Sutra, dude, but with Karma from the fucking Opeth song.
The funny song.
Fucking Opeth song, dude. All right, well, let's get the poll going and see who takes this home. Where's my option to create a poll? There we go. Manage a poll. Yeah.
All right, and may I note, 13 albums. As I see it, we are in the same tier on 2 picks. Surely, do my eyes deceive me? Sorceress and Watershed, and Ghost Reveries 3. Really? Oh no! Yep.
Yeah. 3.
3 picks out of 13.
Good.
That's definitely the most varied so far. I'd say I comfortably.
Look.
And about time. God damn it!
All right, you've got 3 minutes to vote. Whose tier list do you think is objectively correct? Whose bias opinion
is the most true?
Is the most true?
Yeah. I think this is it could be the first time I've ranked 3 S's in a catalogue as well.
This is definitely the most you've given S's.
Yeah. And looking at this, I mean, I feel like Watershed is due an S, and maybe even Blackwater Park. That's a pretty powerful.
Connor's is neater. Connor's looks nicer. Those are what we call funny votes, and they are absolutely valid. Your votes count.
Symmetry be damned.
Make your voice heard. Speak truth to power. I think so.
We're going to color coordinate next week. We're just going to like rainbow. Going to put all the red albums in S and all the blue albums in
you'll
D.
get Sed's vote. God damn it. Opeth says, I'm inclined to vote for Luke, but I don't completely agree.
Yeah.
Well, inclinations be damned.
So, yeah. Please incline. Keep that lean going.
Chuck a lean, Opeth.
Yeah. Hell yeah, I get a sympathy vote from Geordie. That's what we're talking about.
I think of these albums, what are you the most excited to revisit here?
Still Life over and over and over.
Sure. Let's talk in terms of ones that you haven't already given the gold
Okay,
ticket.
so you're saying of this conversation?
Yeah.
Man, I've listened to Pale Communion far more than I want to already, and having people say, nah, man, you're not getting it.
Yeah.
Like, part of me saying, okay, go back to it again, but I'm going, oh, geez, I already have.
Dig the healing, dude.
I already have. Okay, I'll give Pale Communion another go, and get a better sense. In Cauda Venenum, I need to give more time to. It's owed that.
Yeah.
Off your rankings, keen to give, Watershed another listen in the standard edition.
Yep.
Because I feel like that's going to greatly enhance the record.
Absolutely, dude.
And Blackwater Park again as well is worth another listen. I'll give My Arms Your Hearse another spin as well.
Cool.
I feel like there's something I'm missing there as well. And your explanation definitely, I feel like, is helping to unlock something.
Okay.
And talking with chat is helping to unlock something with My Arms Your Hearse.
Mm-hmm. I think
that's what I'm saying. How about you?
I'm actually really excited to go back to I always forget how to pronounce it, in Cauda Venenum.
Yeah.
Like, even just having it in my ears right now, I'm like, I really like the mood this album provides. I'm enjoying it. Really excited to go back to Still Life. Hearing how excited you got about it. It's catching, that enthusiasm catching.
It's an incredible thing. It gives it the fuzzies.
Yeah.
And like all logic goes out the window when listening to it.
Yeah.
It's not a.
I'd like to share in that.
Yeah,
so I think I'll go back to that.
And I don't get that often. So when it happens, it's like out of body experience.
Yeah. Similarly, Watershed. I want to go back and make sure, because I really wanted to rank that in S, and there was something about it that I went maybe not. But that poll is done, and Luke, you took it home, dude. I didn't bring it down, but that belt up there, dude, that's yours, dude.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Still on top, baby. Hey, that's the first time in about 5 weeks, I believe. You've been
fucking ages, dude.
Yeah, you've been like.
Sorry to say, but your taste
after dub.
Your taste has just been off.
That's okay. I do taste
right. The month and a half off must have done you some good.
Yeah. My expiry date has come all the way around, and it's just clicked back to fresh.
Oh god,
it's that time of year again, kids.
It's like yogurt. Connors makes a nice NES side scroller spaceship, and look where that got me. Yeah, bullshit. Is the belt coming home? The belt is coming home.
The belt is coming home, baby.
Matt says, I can't believe I had to betray my prog brethren Luke like this. So you voted me?
Oh, wow, Matt.
I'll take that.
Yeah.
If the resident prog lord...
I've got to say, Matt, by the sounds of things, your ranking would have looked near identical to Connor's.
Matt says, Con's got my vote.
Yeah, good one.
Flyway says, I love that Connor's ranked the first 5 albums in ascending order.
Yes.
It really felt after thing after thing, I was like...
I was surprised that wasn't the case for me.
Okay, I guess I get Opeth. Second one, I'm like, I'm getting Opeth. Third one, I'm like, oh, Opeth. And then, just da-da-da-da-da.
Now, how familiar were you with Blackwater Park going into this? Not at all?
Basically not at all. Save for it's the legacy of it. Going into this, I realized, oh shit, I know the names of the songs more than I know the songs.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah,
It was
cool.
close to Connor's, but not the same. I'll do one up and post in Discord.
Yeah, please. And
by
that
the
goes
way,
to everyone else.
yeah,
If
everyone
you
in
have
chat, please
Sorceress.
join us on Discord, and you can post your own rankings and contribute to the next community pick. Speaking of. My pick. It's my turn to pick.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. And it's also been a while since we've done a discography that was less than 10 picks.
Yes,
Let's
it
not
is.
forget the
It was
previous
2
episode was another 13 albums. Thank you, Luke.
You're welcome.
In Flames. I want to do something a little less serious, a little less sorrowful, and a little less time consuming. We're going to take a hop, skip, and a jump over the pond to Germany. I want to hit up Rammstein.
Oh, yeah,
which y'all should be
dude.
excited
Hell
because
yeah.
that was a runner-up. That was a runner-up for this community pick.
Cool.
So I want to hit Rammstein. Yeah.
Oh,
dude.
I'm excited. I'm really
7
excited.
albums. Neat.
Brilliant.
7 albums. We got 2 weeks to do it.
Yeah.
We'll see you in 2 weeks for
Excellent.
some German fun.
Yeah, I am really, really keen for that one.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, guys. It's been great. Hope you enjoy.
Yeah.
Big kiss.
Really
Mwah.
appreciate you sticking with us.
That's it.
We'll see you
And
next time.
Stay tuned.
That's it, baby.